Hello, I am Adrienne Van Kieran with Tai Chi Healing Energies. In today's video, we are going to be talking about one of my favorite things, Tai Chi diagrams, which is an example of what you see sitting behind me. Most of the world calls them yin-yang symbols. I tend to call them Tai Chi diagrams. So what we're going to learn today, or to review today, is going to be how to draw these diagrams with various parts of the body. That is something that's going to be very important. One of the great things that these diagrams can do once we learn to draw them is to help open up various parts of the body. The arms, thereby the shoulders, also the hips, the ankles, various other parts as well. So these diagrams are very important for opening things up, also for building strength and flexibility through all of the joints. So these diagrams are some of my absolute best tools for helping people, especially people with limited mobility or stuck, stiff, or frozen joints. So when I say draw these diagrams, we're going to do them first with our arms, getting more of the whole body involved, and then we're going to review how to isolate different parts of the body and draw the diagrams there. First though, you might be wondering, what in the world am I talking about drawing these diagrams? Essentially what we're going to do is trace the diagrams. So you might notice on this side there is what I consider a right hand diagram, and on this side it's what's considered a left hand diagram. If you look at what I'm calling a left hand diagram, you'll see that that center point makes a letter S. If you look at the other diagram, you can tell that it makes a backwards letter S. Doesn't matter if I flip these over, this is going to remain a backwards letter S on this right hand diagram, while this one, even flipped over, is still going to be an S. So that's kind of the easy way to tell if it's considered a right hand diagram or a left hand diagram. Just real quick, most people know this is all about balance. It is the Taoist symbol for balance. It unifies that yang energy with the yin energy. So when we draw these, we're going to try to maintain that balance. When I say draw them, what we're going to do, just to demonstrate, and we'll get into the demonstration a little bit, I'm going to start here at the bottom of this diagram. I'm going to bring my hand around this way. Then I'm going to come through the middle of the diagram. As I do, I'm going to allow my palm to rotate over and stay up. Once I've reached the bottom of that diagram, at that point, I'm going to bring my arm all the way around, or my hand all the way around, to then close that diagram. After I've done one, I'm going to go ahead, start on a next one, so that we want to let the ending of this become the beginning of another. So that is essentially how we're going to draw the diagram. So now, just one thing to let you know about, we're going to draw these a little bit bigger than the actual diagram is. Depending on the video angle, this might also be pointed down a little bit. I don't want you looking down as you draw these diagrams. What I want you to do is aim to draw the diagram and have it take up basically the room of your torso. So that's what we're going to be. To start off with, I'm going to go ahead, turn my back to the video camera so that you can see how to draw a right-handed diagram in bow and arrow stance. Then after that, I'm going to turn around and I'll mirror you a little bit so that you can keep your practice going. So to start off with, I'm going to be drawing this right hand diagram in bow and arrow stance. So I'm going to turn my back nice and grounded here, stepping forward with my right foot, bringing my left toe around, sinking down and sitting down from the waist. So I'm in a relaxed bow and arrow stance, keeping in mind what I'm going to do, which is starting at the bottom, coming around through the middle, letting my palm rotate and stay upwards, and around like that. So I'm going to extend my arm in front of me, begin coming around that white part of the diagram. At the top, my palm is down. Coming here through the middle, I'm going to let my palm rotate up. At the bottom of the diagram, that palm is up. Now I'm going to run my hand along the outside edge of that diagram. back to close. So that is one diagram. So starting again, I'm going to trace around the white part of the diagram, coming through the middle with my palm up, allowing it to stay up, then running my hand along that outside edge of the diagram. Again, starting at the bottom, tracing around the white part, coming through the middle here, allowing my palm to rotate up, and then tracing all the way around that diagram. Good. Continuing with that, coming around the white part, through the middle, and again running my hand all the way around that diagram. I'm going to turn around. I want us to keep going with this. At this point, I'm going to be mirroring you. So again, starting another diagram, that same right-handed diagram. Here, we're tracing around that white part, coming through the middle, allowing the palm to remain upwards. At that point, we're going to go all the way around to close the diagram. Again, tracing around that white part, through the middle, allowing the palm to rotate and stay upwards, and then all the way around to close. So that is the motion on how to draw or trace that right hand diagram. Now we're going to move on and look at what we call the left hand diagram. Exact same thing, but the exact opposite. Not too difficult to follow. So with this one, again, I'm going to be using my left hand. Same way, I'm going to start here at the bottom, trace around that white part, coming through the middle, allowing my palm to rotate upwards and stay upwards through the bottom, and then coming all the way around like so. So again, I'm going to trace around this white part, through the middle, allowing that palm to rotate and stay upwards, and then all the way around to close. When I'm saying around to close, I mean starting at the bottom. I'm going to keep my palm on this diagram as though I'm running my hands maybe around the steering wheel of my vehicle, for example. So when I say around to close, I mean like that. Keep that palm on the diagram. Okay, so we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go ahead and turn my back to the video camera, and then we'll go ahead and do this with the left-hand diagram. So I'm going to go from a nice grounded horse riding stance, this time stepping forward with my left foot, making sure I've sunk down and I'm really in a good bow and arrow stance. I'm going to extend my left arm in front of me, trace around that white part of the diagram. The top, my palm is down. It's going to rotate upwards as I trace through the middle. It's going to stay upwards, and then all the way around to close that diagram as though my palm is touching the entire diagram. Again, tracing around the white part, through the middle with the palm up, and around to close. Again, tracing through the middle, or around the white part, then through the middle with that palm up, all the way around to close. Another one, coming around the white part, through the middle, allowing my palm to rotate and stay upwards, and then all the way around to close it. Again, I'm going to turn around, and now I'm going to mirror you. Keep doing that left-hand diagram. Again, trace around the white part, through the middle, allowing that palm to rotate and be up, and then all the way around to close the diagram. And again, coming around the white part, through the middle with the palm rotated upwards, and then around to close. Good. Do want to mention that there is a weight shift associated with these. I didn't want to mention it until we had a little bit of the choreography down. I'm now going to turn to the side so you can see what I'm doing with that weight shift. So I'm going to be going back to this right hand diagram here. So from here, when I start off, I've got my weight on my back leg. I have my right arm extended in front of me. As soon as I begin drawing that diagram, my weight shifts forward. As I come through the middle, my weight is on my back foot. And then I begin to close it and my weight goes forward. And then I'm going to end here on the back foot. So again, tracing around the white part, the weight's on the forward foot. As you come through the middle, the weight shifts back to that back foot. Front foot here, ending again on the back foot. One more time for this right hand diagram. As soon as I begin it, the weight comes forward. I'm on my back foot going through the middle, and then front foot and ending on the back foot. That same weight shift is going to carry through when we're doing the left hand diagram. So now I'm going to turn in this direction, get myself settled into a bow and arrow stance. Now for the left hand diagram. Left arm is extended, the weight is starting on that back foot. As soon as I trace around that white part, I come front, back foot through the middle, coming front here, and ending on the back foot here. So again, front, back, front, back. Again, coming through the front part, weights on the right, or on the front foot, back foot as you come through the middle, front foot here, and ending on that back foot. So that's how the weight shift works. If you were paying attention as I was doing this, because you don't have enough to focus on, you might have noticed that as I was drawing the diagram with one dominant hand, my other hand, my off arm, also had a bit of motion. Now I'm going to mirror you for this, but I want you to pay attention to what I mean. So let me go ahead and step into a bow and arrow stance. For your intents and purposes, you're going to be doing a left hand diagram now. I'm going to be using my right arm, but again, I'm going to mirror you. So putting that weight shift into play where I'm on the forward foot coming through the beginning, back foot through the middle, and then front and back. Again, with that weight shift, forward foot on the, as you start it, you're on that forward front foot, back foot through the middle, front and back. One more time, pay attention to, in this case, my left hand, that off hand that's hanging by my side. The reason that off hand is moving is because in time, you're passing the chi back and forth from which hand has the concentration of chi as you're shifting your weight. So when I do this again, saying I'm mirroring you, and I'm not sure how well I'm really doing with that, but say I'm mirroring you, and at this point you're going to have your right arm forward while I'm using my left arm. So we're going to be drawing a right hand diagram, what it looks like to you. Here, when I shift that weight to my forward foot, the chi is going to be concentrated in my back hand. When I'm here, coming through the middle, because I'm weighted on my back foot, the chi is in this forward hand. Here, the chi is concentrated in that back hand, and now it's back to this forward hand. So the reason that that other hand, that off hand that's hanging next to the side, picks up that motion is because of that switch back and forth of the chi. So that's not something necessarily to think about or worry about, but it's something to allow to happen. I always want to make mention of it because if we don't, when that other arm begins to move, if we don't know what it's doing, then it's a little bit more difficult to allow that to happen and flow naturally. Speaking of naturally, if this is your first time really seeing these diagrams, chances are the tendency was to draw it. You're going to get halfway through the middle and want to put your palm down, and then you're going to be trying to figure out how do I get that around and everything like that. So remember, whenever we draw these diagrams, coming through the middle, the palm stays up. That moment that you are tempted to flip your palm back upside down and then everything just feels weird and wonky is actually the moment that we switch from this yang energy to this yin energy. So if we want to keep this balanced, we're going to make sure that as we draw these diagrams, that palm is always going to stay up as we come through the middle part. Another thing to keep in mind with these diagrams that might have you scratching your head is the fact that they do not, especially when we start them, feel even at first. Chances are that left-hand side was easier for you and that right-hand side might have been more difficult. Or the exact opposite true, and the right-hand side was a little bit easier while the left-hand side felt a little bit more difficult. Has nothing to do if you're right-handed or left-handed. Has more to do if you're more right-brained or left-brained. So expect these to feel a little bit easier on one side than they do on the other. If you notice that was so easy on the right side, the left side was a little bit more difficult, what I'm going to suggest you do is in your daily practice, do a few more on the left side than you're doing on the right side. Okay, so I told you these diagrams can take us in all kinds of different directions. So let's say maybe I've hurt my wrist, I've sprained it, and I need to do a little bit more strength training and to increase the flexibility as it begins to heal. So I'm going to use these diagrams. What I'm actually going to do is get myself nice and grounded into my horse riding stance. I'm going to draw both diagrams at the same time. So I'm going to be drawing a right hand diagram with my right side and a left hand diagram with the left side. Probably noticing I'm beginning to do that already. It's going to be a little bit easier than you likely think. Again, for you, hopefully you're going to be facing these diagrams so you can essentially trace around them. The motion remains the same. I'm going to start at the bottom, coming around that white part, through the middle, allowing my palms to rotate up and stay up, and then all the way around to close. So if you've noticed, I've really tried to isolate that movement right at the wrist, so that way my wrists are really what's working out here as I draw those diagrams. I can make them a little bit bigger. At this point, I like to think that it's more my elbows that are transcribing those diagrams. Again, doing both a right hand side and a left hand side at the same time. So that would be what we consider medium diagrams. Again, the focus being on the elbow drawing the diagrams. Now, to get a little bit more opening, I'm going to draw these large. Now I'm drawing these diagrams, really focusing on the feelings of my shoulder, allowing my hands to cross in front of myself as naturally as I can. Good. And then again. So that's how we are going to do both diagrams at the same time. It's actually easier than you're likely thinking it is, so go ahead and try to incorporate that into your practice. This way we're really using, whenever we're doing something like this, we're actually using both hemispheres of the brain at once, and that is great for our neuroplasticity. So we're getting our joints loosened up and worked out, and getting a brain workout as well. All right, so another thing that I really like to do with these diagrams is to use them as hip openers. So what I mean by that is, instead of drawing a diagram in front of me, I know what those diagrams look like, I have their image in my mind, so now I'm going to transfer that down and draw them on the floor. So what I'm going to do, this is something I ask everybody to do, I don't care how well your balance is, I want you to very lightly touch on something while you're doing this. It's more a way so your brain realizes it does have something to balance and hold on to, but I'm not leaning on this. Just got my fingertips very lightly on it. Back of a chair is perfect for this. So what I'm going to do in this case is use this leg to draw that diagram on the floor. But I'm going to do a right hand diagram followed by a left hand diagram. So that way I'm getting that opening and flexibility from both directions. So starting here, I will draw using my big toe as essentially that pointer. I'm going to draw a right hand diagram directly on the ground. As soon as I finish that, I'm going to go back through and draw a left hand diagram. Again, coming around, doing a right hand diagram, and then starting on the opposite and doing a left hand diagram. I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other leg. Again, keeping my hand very lightly on something to help support me so my brain knows that it's supported. I'm going to pick that other leg up. Marker is that big toe pointed at the ground. For this side, I'm going to go ahead, do a left hand diagram here, and then I'm going to follow that immediately with a right hand diagram. So again, I'm going to come around through the middle, around to close, and now I'm going to go back the opposite way. So that's going to help open up and build the muscle and flexibility in the hips. It's also going to begin building strength around them. If I really needed to and my mobility is good, I can also use my knee, and I'm going to draw them up in the air. So this diagram I'm going to use to draw with my knee. I'm going to draw that diagram in front of my body. So if I start here at the bottom, coming around, through the middle, down and around. Again, doing a diagram on both sides there. Trying to make sure that that's really concentrated actually at the hip. So these are not drawn for the knee per se, but more for the hip. So taking a look at that again, bringing this knee up into the air, I'm gonna go ahead, draw a diagram in one direction there. Again, feeling how that's really on my hip, coming around and like that. So that is another example of how these diagrams can be used. Now, one final kind of thought. When we think about strength and balance and stability, so when we really think about strength and stability for the entire body, most of us, of course, think of the legs, but we tend to focus on having strong knees and if our balance is going to come from there. But realistically, it's those ankles. Those ankles provide the foundation for our balance, our strength, our stability. In addition to that, they're where the proprioceptors are located. Proprioceptors is what tells your body where it is in space, and it all is based on that flexibility and the strength of my ankles. How well can I move them? Can I circle them around? That kind of thing. So if we really want to build and increase the strength and flexibility of our ankles, we're going to use these Tai Chi diagrams to do so. So I will go ahead and sit down. I'm going to extend one leg in front of me, and that big toe is going to become the marker again. I'm going to start at the bottom of the diagram, come around through the middle, and then all the way around to close. Again, coming around through the middle and around to close. One more. Good. I just did essentially three, they were actually right hand diagrams that could have looked like left hand diagrams, keeping in mind that this is video and things are mirrored. So now I'm going to do three in the opposite direction. So again, coming around through the middle and all the way around to close. So that way I'm increasing the flexibility and the strength of my ankles. You'll have to go with me for a minute because now I need to do that on the opposite side so I feel like I'm in balance. So again, I'm going to start here at the bottom of the diagram, tracing around through the middle and then all the way around to close. Again, around through the middle and around to close. One more in that direction. Good. And now I'm going to start and go the opposite direction. So again, around through the middle and around to close. One last one, just so I feel nice and balanced. Good. So we have learned to draw these diagrams using the whole body, standing in bow and arrow stance, keeping in mind that weight shift. So again, as we start, weight comes forward, back foot through the middle, front and back. We learned to do that on both sides. We learned about the other hand that's not transcribing the diagram in front of the body, also picking up that diagram-like motion because of the weight shift back and forth and the concentration of chi switching back and forth from hand to hand. We have learned how to draw those diagrams on the ground to open up the hips. We learned how to use the knees and draw them in the air, again, to open up those hips. We definitely reviewed the ankles, and because we really wanted to expand the brain, we learned how to do these diagrams using both hands at once. Again, if this seems difficult to you, especially on one side than the other, it just means your brain needs to get used to doing those, and I'm going to advise you to do a few more on each side. As always, you are more than welcome to reach out to me with any questions or comments. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today.